Stick it. Episode 1. Move on. Why Italians never do. You know that moment when you're in the middle of a conversation in English and someone uses a phrase you've heard 1,000 times and your brain just stops? Like, the words are familiar, you recognize every single one of them, but together they mean something completely different, and you're standing there smiling and nodding and internally panicking. Yeah. That's today's topic, not because it's complicated, but because nobody ever explained it the way it deserves to be explained. So let's fix that by starting with this phrasal verb, move on. Let me share with you a personal story. My Aunt Rosaria is a wonderful woman, incredible cook, warmest person in the room, and she has never, in her life, moved on from anything. For example, last Christmas, and I want to be precise here, Christmas 2024, she sat down at the table, poured her wine, and said, "Acqua passata, water under the bridge, I have moved on." And then she spent the next 45 minutes explaining what happened in 1997 with the neighbors, in detail, with dates. The thing is, she'd said the same thing at Christmas 2023 and 2022. Every year she moves on, and every year she arrives at the same destination. Same luggage, same expression. Moving on doesn't mean you forget. It means you stop letting the past decide where you're going next. Rosaria is working on it. We are all, somewhere, working on it. Take note. Move on means stop focusing on something from the past and go forward. That's it. You can move on from something specific. It took me a year to move on from that job. You can say it in a meeting when things get uncomfortable, or, "Okay, let's move on," which is the English way of saying, "This conversation is over. I am not reopening it." Very efficient, very un-Italian. And it works at every emotional weight. Heavy. She finally moved on after the breakup. Medium. I made a mistake, I apologized, I'm moving on. Light. We finished Chapter 1. Let's move on to Chapter 2. Same verb, completely different universe of feeling. Context does all the work. Let me share another example about using move on. Taylor Swift. You know her. And if you don't, your kids definitely do. Taylor Swift has made an entire career out of not moving on. 13 albums, thousands of songs, at least 3 exes who deeply regret what they did. And then, at some point, she drops an album, and the critics say, she's moved on, she's evolved, she left the past behind. Except, has she? Because 2 albums later, the same ex is back, different metaphor, different key. And honestly, that's very relatable, because moving on sounds simple, 2 words, but doing it, whole other story. Okay? Now it's your turn. I'm going to give you the beginning of a sentence, and I want you to finish it. Out loud if you can, because saying it matters more than thinking it. I think it's time for me to move on from blank. One thing I'd like to move on from is blank. I'd be happier if I could move on from blank. Say it once, slowly. Notice how the verb carries the whole weight of the decision. That's why it sticks. In short, move on means stop focusing on the past and move forward. Taylor Swift does it in 3 albums and a stadium tour. Aunt Rosaria is projected to do it by 2031. Well, approximately. In the next